Hi everyone, it's Shara, and I am going to go over a few activities that I sent you in this STAR Review Materials HyperDoc, just to make sure that you understand kind of my thinking on how to do some of these activities, because it may seem like a whole lot of resources and a whole lot of non-instruction. So I apologize for that, but I do want to make sure that you know how to use a couple of these. So I'm going to start with reading, because the 8th grade material, and if you scroll down, the English 1 and 2 material is pretty similar. So I want to show you a couple of these that I think are great, especially for reviewing test-taking strategies, test-taking question types, things like that. So I'm going to start with the genre bookmarks, which are something that I really like. So I'm going to click on that so you can see it. Okay, so the genre bookmarks look like this, and you have a couple of choices with these. You can cut each of these out individually, and each student gets like a set kind of paper clip together so that they actually look like bookmarks. Or you can just, if you wanted to screenshot these and put them into a Google Doc and then just have a collection of them digitally, you could do that. You could put them in slides, you could recreate them in slides, and however you want to do that, it's totally up to you. But I really, really like these, especially as the first activity, to make sure that all students know exactly what to do when they get a certain type of text. For example, fiction, the purpose is to be entertained, right? So as the reader, I have some demands on me when I'm reading a fictional text. So I need to read from the beginning to the end. I need to follow the development of plot. I need to try my best to understand the relationships among plot elements and character and setting, follow flashbacks or foreshadowing structures, and make connections to the message or lesson. So again, it tells the reader, hey, if you get a fictional story, here's exactly how you need to go about reading it. So I really like this as a first activity, just so students know what to look for. Now, procedural, you don't have to give them this bookmark. It's technically not included in the reporting categories for STAR EOC, but if you wanted to, just to have it, if you're going to be reading a procedural text, you could definitely give them this one. But really, the key genres that you need are going to be drama, fiction, literary nonfiction, expository, persuasive, and don't forget down here at the bottom, poetry. Okay, so I would start by giving students this. So either in one document, however you recreate this, but that's what I would start with. So those are genre bookmarks. Okay, so each student gets one of those or a set of those. And then you can move to, on this same chart, okay, the next thing is the genre question STEM sort. So if I click that link, I'm going to get this document that has lots of different categories on it. So hopefully these look familiar to students, because these categories are the same categories that were on the genre bookmarks. So again, I would really encourage you to give students those bookmarks and then let them use those bookmarks for these activities that I'm about to go over. So the first one is a genre sort. So it's just looking at question stems from release tests, but with the content material removed. So in other words, it's just the stem that looks like, let me show you. So here are my 6 categories, right? And then I would use these question stems for this. So for example, which statement best expresses the main theme of the excerpt? What effect does the character's behavior have on the resolution of the excerpt? So if I'm supposed to look from these categories, I'm going to have to know my academic vocabulary, and I'm going to have to know the elements of each genre, because I see theme, I see excerpt, I see character, and I see resolution. So I know that that goes with my fiction bookmark. So I would sort these 2 questions under the fiction category. Okay, so that's the first step. I have my genres, and now I'm going to sort my question stems by genre. Another cool thing you could do is, because this has so many academic vocabulary words, like I said, theme, excerpt, character, resolution, I would have students write those words on the back of their bookmark. So that way their genre bookmark gets filled up with academic vocabulary they have to recognize when they are doing these questions. For example, conflict, that could also go on the bookmark. Okay, point of view. So I tried to pull questions that came from all different genres and varied in different ideas. How do paragraphs blank through blank support the author's position? So again, I need to know position. That's going to go with persuasive. So I can add the word persuasive to my bookmark, and I would sort this under the persuasive column, the persuasive category, okay? So this is getting students very used to seeing academic vocabulary and seeing how questions are asked on the test based on genre, okay? So I really like this idea of sorting by genre. So that would be step one. So after looking at the genre bookmarks. So each student gets a bookmark, then we go through and we do the question sort with the stems, and then you're ready to move on to something a little more challenging if you scroll down. The next sort is actual question types, because what I want students to see is that just like on the math test or the history test or the science test, questions have a similar pattern. It's the same way on the reading test. Really on the writing test as well. Every question has a pattern. So there are author's purpose questions, there are vocabulary questions, there are inference questions, and we as teachers recognize that, right? Especially when we do like our data analysis, we're always breaking down questions, but I don't know that students always do that or really even know how to do that. So this is a great way to get them thinking about what the question is asking and what skills they have to access to be able to answer that question correctly. So for example, these are just some choices: author's purpose, vocabulary, summary, inference, a question where they have to analyze text evidence, a main idea or a detail, plot structure, connecting genres, theme, analyzing a visual. I mean, you could add to this for sure. This is just a good place to start. So these go with actual released questions. So I gave you some examples here. If I was a student and I got this question, I would know to sort that under vocabulary, because this is asking me the definition of a word based on this dictionary entry. If I got this question, as a student, I would know that is analysis of text evidence. Or maybe could be inference also, but because I have a text evidence box, I'm going to sort it under text evidence because that's a very specific style of question. Okay? And then of course we have the summary question, so students know what to look for there. And then we have author's purpose or craft. Sometimes we call it author's craft, sometimes author's purpose. Okay, so really you could call it either one, whatever you've been using primarily in your classroom. So if you're going to do the question types, then you would go to the question type sort. Okay, so just a review, on this document, you have the genre bookmarks right here, okay? Then you would move into the question stems. You would sort those, right? And then you would do the actual questions, okay? The sentence stem, or the question type sort, okay? So that way they're kind of in order. That's why I put them in that order, because you should do this one first. Let's be clear on genre before we move to question type, because that's definitely more challenging. So if you went to this tab, you'll see I've pulled actual test questions. So here again, students should know this is a vocabulary question. This is a summary question. This is an author's purpose question, or could be analyzing a visual because it's talking about a photo. And those are both right. That's the point to make, is you can give them credit for either column, okay? Main idea, the selection is mainly about. This one's analyzing text evidence, right? How about this one? How are Pat Summitt's father in A History of Fearlessness and Julie Adams' inner voice in No Dream is Impossible similar? I'm hoping they will see there's two texts here. So this is a connecting genres question, right? It's a paired text question. So again, you can go through all of these. You can go through some of them. I also have, since all of these are digital, you could even insert, you know, some boxes, text boxes out here to the side and put author's purpose. You could put all of the categories here and then just have them sort it onto the question in slides. So any of these could be done digitally because all the questions are available digitally. So if you don't want to print all these out and cut them up and do a sort with paper, you could definitely sort it digitally online. Okay? So I just want to make sure that that makes sense. So again, you can use any of these, the question stem sort, the genre sort stem questions, the question type sort, and the actual questions. Any of that can be done with paper or digitally. Okay, and then of course the genre bookmarks could be done digitally as well, and students could make those if you want them to recreate their own. That would be great, so they can certainly do that. A couple of other things that I want to make sure you know, the two new text pairings are here, so lots of different genres and challenging questions can be found there. As far as writing goes, you can find underneath the writing section, again, these are pretty similar for both English 1 and 2 and 7th grade writing, but this one, for example, is another sort. So you would do the same thing again for writing, except these are writing rules. So we have capitalization, punctuation, verb tense, and so on. So you would use released test questions, but you would be sorting it by rule. Okay. So they would have to answer the question. Here we go, right? So you have to answer the question, what change should be made? And this one was, in this case, it shouldn't have been fill, it was feel, so it was a spelling question, right? So they would have to sort it under the spelling tab. Okay. All right, same thing here, editing and revising. You can give them a revision question and an editing question and mix them all up, and they have to sort whether it's editing or revising, just to make sure they understand the difference, to really send that point home that there is a difference between the two, and different skills are tested with each category. So make sure that you make that clear as well. So you can do different kinds of sorts with this. So there is also a writing sort, or I did some matching. So in this one, there's a collection of different prompts from release test, and on some of the activities, I gave students a thesis statement, asked them to break it down and tell me what the exact thesis statement is, and then I asked them which body paragraph would best support the thesis. Okay, so I gave them 3 choices, then they have to choose which one best supports the thesis and why, so that they can start to see how a good essay is organized. The thesis and the body paragraphs all flow together. The same ideas should be presented throughout the essay so that it's coherent. Okay. Then prompt number 2, I changed it around and gave them a body paragraph and said, based on this body paragraph, what would the thesis statement be? So lots of thinking here about different writing techniques and things like that. So there's lots of good examples in this one. And then of course on the last one, after doing all that practice, I asked them to write their own. So in this case, they had to write their own introduction and their own body paragraph, okay, based on what they had seen before. Okay, so this is another great one to practice with writing, just looking at different examples and seeing what makes each one either a good example or maybe one that could be a little bit stronger. So that would be a great activity as well. So those are just a few of the activities, but I hope that that makes more sense and that you can use the sort in some way, either digitally or on paper. But if you have any questions, just let me know. Thanks.